Awesome. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back for season 3 of Still We Persist. This is our second episode. Welcome to winter term. And it's just Shaina and I today. And so Shaina will kind of get us started with a land acknowledgement. But thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Maija. This land acknowledgement is specific to Corvallis. So Oregon State University in Corvallis is located within the traditional homelands of the Marys River or Mpenefu Band of Kalapuya. Following the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855, Kalapuya people were forcibly removed to reservations in Western Oregon. Today, living descendants of these people are part of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians. Indigenous people are valued contributing members of the Oregon State community and represent multiple sovereign tribes among students, faculty, staff, and alumni. As people who are not Indigenous, IA members accept our responsibility for understanding the continued impact of that history on these communities. IA is committed in the spirit of self-reflection, learning, reconciliation, and partnership to ensure that Oregon State University, as an institution of higher learning, will be of enduring benefit, not only to the state of Oregon, but also to the people on whose ancestral lands it is now located.
Awesome. Thank you, Shaina. Yeah, those are a land acknowledgement. It's always important for us to remember where we are, all of those peoples, their history, and the role we play in how we interact with the land and the accountability for those who may not have that understanding. So, but yeah, thank you for sharing, reading that out. But yeah, just to kind of get us started, how's this term felt for you so far? I know you've been teaching classes and can't imagine being a professor on this end of the surge.
Yeah, I have very mixed feelings about this term. Like, as a student, I feel very supported by my professors. Like, they have listened. They're very willing to be flexible, do whatever we need to feel safe. And I am always saying my department, Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, is incredibly supportive of students. Like, I always feel listened to. As a graduate instructor, I feel like I have more responsibility than I am trained to have to protect my students and make decisions for their safety. I think like that's been the biggest source of stress for me this term, is just like figuring out, how do my students learn best and stay safe when like I don't really have enough information to make those decisions? So how about you, Maija? How are things feeling?
Yeah, definitely not instructing anything, but yeah, there's definitely been it's been an adjustment, especially with like the people around me, making sure my friends and family are safe and cared for. And as like a student leader on campus, being cognizant, like how are these meetings accessible? What are the needs of the students? Like I know like the university does their part in like sharing information with us as students. I don't know on the faculty end, like if there's that same information getting shared. But I led a meeting recently and I was like, here are some of the resources that I think some people may not have like an awareness to, that, it'd be nice having someone to share. And so things like Office of Student Care, Office of Advocacy, free booster clinics that are happening in the Benton County area, what the like updated vaccine requirements, isolation, and everything guidelines. Cause I think there's like some people that know of what those are and engage with those resources more frequently, but as a whole, sometimes I feel like it gets lost. And so as a student, a lot of my teachers have been really accommodating. I feel for them a little bit. I had to like try to connect Zoom to a classroom for one of my meetings for people wanting to join through like a hybrid style. And I was like, why isn't this turning on? How does the mic work? And so I can empathize now with my professors who are struggling in those like first 5 to 10 minutes. But yeah, also with that, that's been kind of something I've noticed that's kind of hard for my classes and my professors, is that because not every classroom is necessarily made the same, for the professors who are doing that hybrid style, just getting that connection, setting aside 5 to 10 minutes out of a 50-minute class. I don't know how that will like build up over time, if this will be like a continuous challenge that we in our classrooms face, but I also know that that's been hard and frustrating for students and teachers alike.
Yeah. And I'm really glad you pointed out resources for students. I'll also say, like, it seems like we have fewer visitors coming into the Women and Gender Center. And I know that's like, it's a place that our visitors tend to feel very comfortable. Like, I'm saying visitors versus staff, because like staff are still hanging out there, but I mean like members of the community. So I guess I want to point out that like, if you do come to the center, we have KN95 masks for like people who want to hang out. So maybe that'll make sure like we feel a little bit safer in there.
Yeah, definitely. And I know like some of the filters in our air cleaning devices, like those machines the black machines we have, if you've ever been into our center as of this fall term. So just replace those filters. They're strong. We try to keep the door open whenever we can until it gets a little too chilly for the people inside, staff and visitors alike. So, we're doing our best there, but yeah, definitely it's been nice being back in the center. I like having that cozy space, whether it's, dropping in some of my free time before like my next class. Those couches I miss the couches, immaculate. I haven't been able to take a nap on them anytime recently, but just know that there's the potential to find Maija sleeping at the WGC.
Yeah. I always hear like anytime somebody comes into the center for the first time, they're like, oh, these couches are so comfy.
Yeah, it's like my favorite things. And I know one of our staff and like IIT members, B, when she gives tours, she's like, I've heard these couches are like the comfiest ones on campus. And I know that I was the one that said that to her. I was like, yeah, some of the things I really love about the center, those couches, like unbeatable. And so if you want a comfy place to nap, sit and do homework, read, or just like talk with your friends, WGC, I think, is like a really great place.
Yeah, I totally agree, which I think leads into the next thing that I want to talk about. So we've mentioned what's been challenging for us, but like what's something besides being able to hang out at the center that's going well in these 2 weeks of the term?
That feels like a question, when you ask people and you're like, so like, how are you doing? How's the term been going, kind of thing? Like when you're like much into the term and they're like, yeah. And it's like, that's how it is how it is, kind of, that's how it be. But when I think just one thing that's gone well is that I was out sick for that first week of school. And so knowing that I was really supported, which I think is what a lot of students are needing, like that empathy and compassion and that grace. So knowing that like I received that from my teachers, that I received that from like my fellow staff, both at the WGC and at the Academic Success Center. And so I think something I've noticed is that I've seen a lot of support between each other, no matter whether they're like professional staff, instructor, student to student. I like to see that we're caring about each other during this time, as much as we have the capacity for too. And so that makes me happy, because I know during like the start of the pandemic and even into like as we were returning to in person, some of that died off, some of that compassion, and whether it be from like just being so tired, the confusion of the time. So it's good to see that, it's still there somehow, or not somehow, in some forms. So, but yeah, what about you? What about anything that's gone well?
Yeah, I mentioned my department and at the school level, like language, culture, and society, they have been really helpful in helping us figure out how to teach in a way that works for everybody. And I am so lucky. Like I always have students who are like looking out for each other. They're very careful about like masking when we're in the classroom. They are like doing the work to like such a degree, like beyond anything I would expect when like the world is just so stressful right now. So I love every group of students I've had. And I always think like, well, things are going to be so hard with, like the pandemic getting worse again or whatever. And my students always come through, like they're incredible. So I think that's been like one of the bright spots for sure is talking to my students twice a week. And I'm teaching a Disney course. So like who doesn't enjoy talking about Disney, right? So they're like doing all the reading and relating everything to the movies that we're watching. It's just great to see. I don't know if I would have been able to like make all the connections that my students do when I was an undergrad. So it feels like we're creating a good classroom community together, I hope.
I love to hear that. Yeah, no, I'm glad, like even on days when I might not be super engaged, somebody's doing it. Gives me hope. Like working with students, both in like this position and at my other job. It's really nice to hear that students haven't like lost their morale. And then it helps me keep going because I'm like, you know what? Even when I'm taking that space for myself and that like I totally advocate for, knowing your capacity, setting boundaries. And so it does not have to be this toxic positivity, optimism at all times. But, when you do have that, the morale booster, when you are able to like utilize that. So the rest of the people around me are giving me hope.
Yeah. I also appreciate like a lot of my students will let me know that there's something going on in their lives and they're having a tough time. So like, I'm not expecting my students to be working at like 110% all the time. I'm just like really glad that they are opening to figuring all this out with me. So yeah, that feels pretty good, I think.
Yeah. And with all that, the things that are going well, I think that's like a good lead into, what are we looking forward to? There's lots of things we're worried about that we've like expressed, especially like, I don't know what meeting I was in, but someone had made a comment where like one day or like 1 week in the pandemic right now feels like 3 weeks is happening. But yeah, kind of just wanted to talk about like what are we looking forward to, whether it's like personally or that Aya and the WGC is up to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A big thing is we're planning on having Woke Fest at the end of this term, right? I'm really excited to connect with the community at maybe like a larger scale than we've been able to so far this year. Having like something online or in person or a little bit of both. I'm really hoping that it works out, that we can do another, I think we called it a recipe share last year, but basically do a cooking tutorial, maybe like a couple of us cook together and then we share a meal together as an Aya team. That'll be fun. Plus, I think it will just feel nice to have something like non-academic to do together as a team. And I'm also hoping that I can start hanging out with my friends more when things get safer. Like we've just all been cautious because we have like, family members who are immunocompromised, or we just don't want to like take things to our students, like spread something to like a larger group. So we haven't been hanging out as much, and I'm hoping that changes soon. So what are you looking forward to, Maija?
Being done with the term. No, I'm kidding. What am I looking forward to? I think some things I'm looking forward to is the organizations I'm a part of. We have, just as like with last term, and fingers crossed that things get better this term from this surge. But we have a lot of events that were able to hold due to quarantine and lockdown, understandably. But I'm really excited. One of them is a formal dance that members of like my sorority and I do, and we've got the MU ballroom rented out, and we're working to make sure that like all the safety precautions are in place. All of these things can happen. But I brought a really pretty dress. It's gala themed for our formal dance. And so my partner and I have already and it's not till like the end of February. And so my partner and I have already started planning out, I ordered my dress, it's supposed to be here next week. His dad has like this suit jacket that's super fun and just like looks so like very Met Gala. When like celebrities show up, and some of them show up like in a very like, gala, like very nice, like formal attire. And then some show up and it's just very, very out there. And so we're a good balance of both of those. I'm very excited.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. I hope you'll share a picture at least with like the Aya team, if not publicly, because that I really want to see that.
Oh my gosh, yes, most definitely. I will be in our meetings. I will be in on shift, and I will like immediately start whipping out pictures. I showed Benasia one of my the pictures of my dress, like from where I'm getting it, and she's like super excited for me, and so it'll just be nice too, because I'm like someone who likes to dress up, and I was fortunate to be able to have experienced this event twice prior to the start of the pandemic. And so I'm really excited for like our members who joined during the pandemic to be able to experience some of these traditions. And just so that in my senior year, there's like the very strong hope that I get to do it one more time. So I'm really excited. I really like it. And we get cake and food.
Who doesn't like cake? I'm sure some people don't like cake. That's totally fine if you don't. But it sounds like we have some big events coming up in the next couple of months. Aya has several events for Woke Fest, and we still have our Women of Color discussion groups going on in person and on Zoom. So check out our social media for all of those events. We'll keep you all updated. Any other announcements you can think of, Maija? Things our community might want to know?
Yeah, I definitely think those are some key ones. But yeah, the woke discussion group that we're talking about is meeting even weeks. And right now it's looking at 11:30 to 12:30 p.m. on Wednesdays. So be sure to follow us on our socials and like subscribe to our newsletter, so that you're the first to know. We're still continuing on, thankfully, with our Woke Wednesdays weekly newsletter. We've had our first week, Benasia kind of covered the women's building on campus, and we have some like really fun and interesting things that I think students don't know, especially haven't been gone for so long. And so you can read her piece. And then I wrote a very like just informational piece about January being National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. And so if that is something that you want to learn more about, have the capacity for, again, I wrote it so that it wasn't like triggering, explicit or anything. And so content warning there. But yeah, if you just want to learn, kind of see what resources are there, and kind of also if you're curious about something I learned was like, what does that look like in the during COVID-19 pandemic? And there was just a lot I didn't know, and so I'm glad to be more informed. And so if you'd like to join me in that, be sure to check out our newsletters.
Yeah, that was a really good piece, Maija. I appreciate all the work you did to write that, especially in a way that like I think it's accessible to most people. Like it wasn't as difficult for me to read as something like that could be. So I really appreciate that you worked on that piece.
Thank you.
Well, we will put we should have our socials in the description here on YouTube. And thank you to KBVR for editing, putting this together, making sure everything comes together like it's supposed to. And thanks to the rest of the Aya team, Benasia and Jada, for supporting us all the time. And we will see you all next week.
Yes, we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us today.